I wasn't supposed to fall for anyone at that wedding, especially not him. The whole thing started with a text from my friend Mark, sent months earlier, back when life still felt predictable. "You're coming, right? I'll literally die if you're not there." So yeah, I came. I booked the flight, packed a suit I hated, and told myself this would just be a long weekend of polite smiles, open bars, and pretending I wasn't single at 32. The wedding was in a small coastal town, one of those places that smells like salt, sunscreen, and money. White houses, narrow streets, everything aggressively picturesque. Mark and his fiancée were doing the whole destination wedding thing, which meant everyone was staying at the same boutique hotel and running into each other half-dressed by the pool at all hours. From the moment I arrived, the expectations were clear. I was supposed to flirt with bridesmaids. I was supposed to reconnect with people from college. I was supposed to maybe go for the safe, obvious option. Mark's cousin Emily, who'd already followed me on Instagram and liked 3 of my old photos within an hour. There was a script. Everyone else seemed to be following it. Then at the welcome dinner, I met Ethan. He wasn't part of the wedding party. That was the first thing that threw me off. No matching outfits, no forced cheerfulness. He was sitting slightly apart from the chaos, sleeves rolled up, glass of whiskey in hand, like he'd wandered in from a different, quieter movie. Mark introduced us quickly. "This is Ethan Sarah's brother, the bride's brother." Strike one. He shook my hand, firm grip, quick smile. Not flirty, not distant either. Just easy. His voice was calm, a little low, like he didn't need to compete to be heard. "Nice to finally meet you," he said. "Mark's talked about you." "That's worrying," I replied automatically. He laughed short, genuine. "Yeah, that tracks. That should have been it. A nice moment. A polite exchange." But for some reason, I kept noticing him after that. The way he listened more than he talked. The way he leaned in slightly when someone spoke like they mattered. The way his smile changed depending on who he was with. And, if I'm being honest, the way his suit fit him like it had been tailored with intention. I told myself to stop. He was off limits in about 5 different ways. The rest of the evening blurred into wine, speeches, and the kind of small talk you forget the second it ends. I ended up next to Ethan again at the bar, purely by coincidence, at least that's what I told myself. "You surviving?" he asked. "Barely," I said. I forgot how intense wedding people can be. He nodded. "I've been hiding all night." Perks of not being in the bridal party. We clinked glasses. It felt comfortable. Too comfortable for someone I'd met an hour earlier. "So," he said casually, "how do you know Mark?" "College. We were idiots together." "Ah," he smirked. "That explains why my sister trusts you." Something in the way he said it made my chest tighten, not in a dramatic way, just enough for me to notice. I should have walked away then. Found Emily. Followed the script. Instead, I stayed. We talked about stupid things at first travel, work, how destination weddings were secretly just expensive endurance tests. Somewhere between his second drink and my third, the conversation shifted, slowed, got quieter. I realized I was laughing more than I had in months. And the worst part? I didn't even know who I was supposed to fall for anymore. The next morning, I woke up with that quiet, unpleasant awareness that something had shifted. Not in a dramatic, my life is changed way. More like when you wake up in a hotel room, and it takes a second to remember where you are. Except this time, what I couldn't place was the feeling in my chest. Light, annoying, persistent. I saw Ethan everywhere that day. By the pool, talking to his parents. In the lobby, arguing with the concierge about coffee. At breakfast, sitting across from me by pure accident again. "Didn't peg you as a morning person," he said, eyeing my sunglasses while I squinted at my plate. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm a forced social interaction person." He smiled into his coffee. Dangerous skill to have at a wedding. We ate together, no big deal. Totally normal. Except I noticed things I shouldn't have. The faint scar on his forearm. The way he always pushed his chair back for waitstaff. How he looked relaxed without trying to be impressive. I kept reminding myself, bride's brother. Straight. Off limits. I didn't actually know if he was straight, but weddings tend to assume these things for you. And no part of me wanted to be that guy who misreads everything and makes it weird. That afternoon, there was a group excursion some boat tour Mark had insisted would be epic. I almost skipped it. Sunburn, crowds, force bonding. Hard pass. But Ethan was going. So I went. We ended up sitting next to each other as the boat pulled away from the dock, the engine loud enough that conversation required leaning in. His knee brushed mine when the waves got rough. He didn't move it away. Neither did I. Careful, he said, half smiling. Wouldn't want to fall overboard. With my luck, I said. I'd drown dramatically and steal attention from the bride. He laughed, loud this time, and something about that laugh settled right into me, like it belonged there. At one point, the rest of the group wandered to the front of the boat, cameras out, chasing dolphins or whatever people do on boats. Ethan stayed seated. So, he said, lowering his voice, "Can I ask you something?" "Depends," I said. "Is it incriminating?" He hesitated, just a beat too long. "Why are you really here?" I frowned. "For the wedding?" He tilted his head. "That's not what I meant." The wind whipped between us, salt in the air. For a second, I considered deflecting, making a joke. That's what I usually did. Instead, I shrugged. "Mark's been my friend for a long time." He asked. I said yes. That all. I looked at him. Really looked. His expression wasn't accusatory. Just curious. Open. I guess I also wanted to feel something, I admitted quietly. Lately, it's been a lot of autopilot. Ethan nodded slowly, like that made perfect sense. "Yeah," he said. "I get that." Something unspoken passed between us then. Not attraction, exactly. Recognition. That night was the rehearsal dinner. Everyone dressed up, emotions running high. I really tried to redirect myself. I talked to Emily, danced with a bridesmaid, did all the things I was supposed to do. But my eyes kept finding Ethan. At one point, I caught him watching me. Not casually, not accidentally. He looked away when I noticed, but the moment stayed with me. Later, I stepped outside for air, the noise inside getting too loud. The courtyard was quiet, lit with strings of warm lights. I leaned against the stone wall, exhaling. "Thought I'd find you here," Ethan said behind me. I turned. "Stalking me now?" "Maybe," he said lightly. "Or maybe I needed air too." We stood there, a few feet apart, close enough to feel each other's presence. Not close enough to cross any lines. "You're different when you're alone," he said. "So are you," I replied. He met my gaze, held it, and for the first time, it really hit me that this wasn't harmless. That whatever this was, it wasn't going to stay neatly contained inside a wedding weekend. The worst part? I didn't want it to. The wedding day arrived faster than I expected, like time had decided to sprint just to mess with me. I woke up early, heart already racing, and immediately hated myself for knowing exactly why. Today was supposed to be simple. Ceremony, reception, hug Mark, congratulate Sarah, fly home with a mild hangover and a few forgettable memories. Instead, it felt like standing at the edge of something I didn't know how to name. I saw Ethan briefly that morning passing in the hallway while I was heading out for coffee. He was in workout clothes, hair still damp, earbuds hanging around his neck. "Morning," he said, soft, like he didn't want to break something fragile. "Morning," I replied. That was it. No linugating, no jokes. But my chest stayed tight long after he disappeared down the stairs. The ceremony itself was beautiful in that polished, emotional way weddings always are. Sarah cried. Mark cried harder. Everyone laughed at the vows. I clapped, smiled, did all the right things, but my focus kept drifting. Ethan stood near the front with his family. He looked different in his suit cleaner lines, more serious. When he laughed at something his sister said, it felt intimate somehow, like I was seeing a version of him most people didn't get. "Stop," I told myself. "This is getting ridiculous." At the reception, the drinks flowed, the music got louder, and the night took on that hazy, suspended feeling where consequences feel far away. I danced. I talked. I played along. And still, I felt him before I saw him standing beside me at the bar. "Vodka soda," he guessed. "Are you psychic?" I said, "Just observant." He ordered for both of us. Another thing I noticed. Another thing I filed away like it meant something. "So," he said, handing me my glass, "be disappearing early tonight? Or sticking it out?" I took a sip, buying time. "Depends." "You?" He shrugged. "I'll stay. Family obligation." "Right," I said. Bride's brother. There was again the invisible wall between us. We stood there, music thumping behind us, surrounded by people but somehow separate from all of it. You know, he said carefully, I don't usually do this. Do what? Get distracted at weddings. I laughed a little too quickly. Yeah, same. But the way he looked at me told me that wasn't what he meant. Later, much later, the night started to thin out. People drifted off in couples or groups, heels abandoned, ties loosened. I stepped outside again, needing air grounding. I wasn't surprised when Ethan followed. The courtyard was quieter now, lights dimmed, the sound of the ocean faint in the distance. He stood beside me, close enough that our arms almost touched. Almost. Can I be honest? He asked. I nodded. Please. I've been trying to figure out where the line is, he said, and whether we've already crossed it. My breath caught. Have we? He looked at me then. Really looked. I think so. Silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. Charged. I don't want to make this weird, I said, or mess anything up for you, or for your sister. I know, he said quietly. I've been telling myself the same thing. And yet, I added, and yet, he echoed. For a second, I thought he might step closer, or that I might. Instead, he exhaled and took a small step back. I should probably head in, he said, before I do something stupid. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted the opposite. Yeah, me too. He hesitated. We're both flying out tomorrow, right? Yeah. Then, he said, voice low, maybe we talk before that. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a plan, but it was something. As he walked away, I realized the truth I've been avoiding all weekend. I hadn't fallen for the wrong person. I'd fallen for the one person I wasn't prepared to lose. I barely slept that night. Not because of the alcohol or the music still echoing in my head, but because my brain refused to shut up. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed moments I hadn't even realized mattered until now. His hand brushing mine at the bar, the way his voice dropped when things got serious, the look he gave me right before he walked back inside. We'll talk before we leave. That sentence sat in my chest like unfinished business. Morning came too fast. Sunlight cut through the curtains, merciless and bright. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide if I was about to have a calm conversation or a messy one that would stick with me for years. I showered, dressed, checked out. Everything felt oddly quiet, like the hotel itself was holding its breath. I was wheeling my suitcase through the lobby when I heard my name. Hey! I turned, and there he was, Ethan, leaning against one of the pillars near the entrance. Jeans, t-shirt, jacket slung over his shoulder. No wedding version of him anymore. Just him. You heading out? He asked. Yeah, I said. You? Same. We stood there for a second, neither of us moving. The lobby was mostly empty, just the low hum of morning staff and the clink of dishes from the breakfast room. So, I said finally, you said you wanted to talk. He nodded. Walk with me. We stepped outside, the air cooler than I expected. The ocean was visible down the street, calm and gray-blue, like it didn't care about my internal crisis at all. We walked in silence for a bit. Not awkward, just heavy. I've been trying to figure out how to say this without making it sound bigger than it is, Ethan said. Or smaller. I glanced at him. Good luck with that. He huffed a quiet laugh. Yeah. He stopped walking. I did too. I didn't expect to meet anyone this weekend, he said. Especially not you. And I definitely didn't expect to feel like this. This, I echoed. I'm not confused, he added quickly, like he needed me to understand that. About who I am, or what I want. I'm just careful. Family stuff. Timing. All of it. I nodded. I get that. More than you think. He looked at me then, eyes steady. What I don't get is why it feels wrong to let this go. That hit harder than I expected. Ethan, I said slowly, if this is just a wedding thing, dash. It's not, he interrupted. Not harsh. Just certain. Silence again. The kind that presses in from all sides. So what are you saying? I asked. He took a breath. I'm saying I don't want to pretend we didn't feel something. But I also don't want to blow up my sister's wedding memories by doing something reckless. I smiled faintly. That's responsible. I hate it, he admitted. That made me laugh. Real and unguarded. We stood there close now. Not touching. The space between us felt intentional, charged. Where do you live? He asked. Chicago. Damn, he muttered. I'm in Seattle. Of course he was. I exhaled. So this is the part where we say wrong time, wrong place, right? He studied my face. Does it have to be? I felt that familiar pull in my chest, that urge to protect myself, to choose the easy ending. But easy had started to feel overrated. No, I said, it doesn't. His expression softened. Not relief exactly. More like permission. Then, he said, pulling his phone from his pocket, at the very least, we don't disappear from each other's lives. He held the phone out to me. I didn't hesitate. Our fingers brushed when I handed it back, the contact brief but grounding. This isn't a promise, he said. I don't know what this turns into. I don't need a promise, I replied. Just honesty. He nodded. I can do that. We stood there a moment longer, neither of us quite ready to leave. When he finally stepped forward, it wasn't dramatic. No movie kiss. Just a hug, firm, lingering, full of things we weren't saying out loud. Safe flight, he said quietly. You too. I watched him walk away, then turn toward my ride. As the car pulled off, I felt something unexpected settle over me. Not certainty, but hope. And somehow, that felt like the most dangerous and honest thing of all. Part 5. The week after the wedding felt unreal, like I'd stepped back into my normal life, but forgot to bring part of myself with me. Chicago was gray when I landed. Familiar. Predictable. I went back to work, answered emails, complained about deadlines. On the surface, everything slid back into place easily. Inside, though, I kept checking my phone. I told myself I wasn't waiting. That would imply expectations. But when his name finally lit up my screen 3 days later, my heart jumped anyway. Ethan, you make it home okay? I stared at the message longer than necessary before replying. Me, yeah. Jet lagged and grumpy, but alive. You? 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Ethan, same. Wedding hangover is real. Also, my sister won't stop asking about you. That made me smile. Too much. Me? All good things, I hope. Ethan, she said you were quiet but dangerous. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment. From there, it just continued. Not in some intense, all-consuming way. No dramatic declarations. Just steady messages. Links to songs. Complaints about work. Photos of his morning coffee with sarcastic captions. He asked questions, real ones. The kind people don't ask unless they actually want to know the answers. Late one night, after a particularly long day, I found myself typing something and then deleting it. Typing it again. Me. Can I ask you something without making it weird? The reply came slower this time. Ethan, we've definitely passed the not weird stage. So yeah, I stared at the ceiling, then typed. Me. Were you already out to your family? Before the wedding. A pause. Long enough that I wondered if I'd crossed a line. Then, Ethan, yeah. A few years now. Sarah's known forever. Why? Relief washed through me, mixed with something sharper regret. Maybe that I'd assumed otherwise. Me. Just wanted to understand what I was walking into. Ethan, you weren't walking into anything you didn't want to. That line stuck with me. The week stretched on. Our conversations deepened, then pulled back, then deepened again. There were moments it felt dangerously close to something real, and moments where the distance reminded us both to be careful. One night, after a couple glasses of wine, I found myself pacing my living room, phone pressed to my ear. Say it again, I said. You're impossible, Ethan replied, laughing softly. I said, I miss you. Yeah, I said. I just wanted to hear how it sounds. We fell quiet after that, the kind of silence that isn't empty. Can I be honest? He asked. Always. I'm scared that if we keep doing this halfway thing, one of us is going to get hurt. I leaned against the window, city lights blinking below. So what do you suggest? Another pause. Then, I have a conference in Chicago next month. My heart stuttered. You do? Just found out today, he said. 3 days. Downtown. I smiled, slow and unavoidable. That sounds inconvenient. For my productivity, he agreed. But good for my sanity. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. I don't want this to be a fantasy, he continued. I want to see what this looks like in real life. Messy schedules. Bad coffee. All of it. I closed my eyes. Yeah, I said quietly. Me too. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, phone resting on my chest. I'd gone to a wedding expecting nothing more than a weekend escape. Instead, I'd come home with something unfinished. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Ethan arrived on a Thursday afternoon, right when Chicago was doing that early fall thing where the air feels sharp but promising. I told myself not to overthink it. This wasn't a reunion scene from a movie. No slow-motion airport run. Just two adults meeting up to see if something real could exist outside a wedding bubble. Still, when I spotted him in the hotel lobby, jacket off, sleeves rolled up again, scanning the room like he wasn't sure what he was, hoping to find, my pulse spiked. Then his eyes landed on me. The smile that crossed his face wasn't polite. It wasn't restrained. It was the kind you don't bother hiding. "Hey," he said, stepping closer. "Hey," I replied, suddenly very aware of how close he was standing. For a second, we just looked at each other. Not awkward, just recalibrating. This was him in my city, my life, not a temporary version. "So," he said lightly, "you look taller in Chicago." I laughed. Jet lag, hallucination. We hugged again. Nothing dramatic, but it lingered a fraction longer than necessary. When we pulled back, neither of us moved right away. "This okay?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. "It is." That night, we kept it simple. Dinner at a neighborhood place I liked, nothing fancy. I wanted him to see my real life, not some curated version. We talked easily, the conversation flowing like it had been doing for weeks, but now with expressions, gestures, pauses that texting never quite captured. He noticed everything. The bartender remembered my usual. The way I gestured when I got animated. The fact that I slowed down when something actually mattered. Later, walking back to his hotel, the city buzzing softly around us, the air felt charged again. Familiar, but heavier now. "Come up?" he asked, stopping near the entrance. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Yeah." The room was quiet, curtains half open, city lights spilling in. We stood there for a second, neither of us rushing. I appreciated that about him, how he didn't assume, didn't push. Ethan reached out first, fingers brushing my wrist like a question. I answered by closing the distance. The kiss was slow, intentional. No urgency, no performance. Just warmth and confirmation. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. "So," he murmured, "this still feel like a bad idea?" I smiled. "If it is, I'm already too far gone." That night wasn't wild or rushed. It was grounded, real, the kind of intimacy that comes from knowing someone before touching them. In the morning, light crept in through the curtains, soft and forgiving. I woke to the sound of him moving around quietly, trying not to wake me. "You don't have to sneak," I said, eyes still closed. He chuckled. Wasn't sure of the protocol. I opened one eye. Coffee. Then honesty. He sat on the edge of the bed. "That's a dangerous combination. Seems on brand for us." He grew serious then. "I don't want this to be just a visit." Neither did I. We didn't solve everything that weekend. Distance didn't magically disappear. Life didn't pause to accommodate us. But when he left on Sunday, it felt different than the airport goodbye after the wedding. This time we had context. And as I watched his cab pull away, one thought settled clearly in my mind. I hadn't fallen for the wrong person after all. I just met him at the wrong time and decided not to let that stop me. Long distance isn't dramatic in the way movies make it seem. It's quieter, heavier, built out of small moments instead of big ones. Ethan and I didn't label anything right away. We didn't need to. Well, we had slid into place naturally, scheduled calls that pretended to be casual, texts sent half asleep, inside jokes no one else would ever get. Some nights we talked for hours. Some weeks we barely synced up at all. And that was the hard part. Seattle had him busy. Chicago had me tired. There were moments lying alone in my bed, city noise humming outside, when I wondered if we were dragging something beautiful out longer than it could realistically last. One night, after a particularly long silence, I finally said it. "Are we doing this?" I asked over the phone. He didn't joke it away, didn't dodge. "Yeah," he said, "I think we are. But I also think we need to stop pretending this doesn't have weight." I sat on the edge of my couch, staring at the floor. "Okay, so what does that mean?" "It means I don't want to keep missing you from 2,000 miles away forever." That landed. A month later, I flew to Seattle. It wasn't romantic in a glossy way. It rained the entire first day. My suitcase got soaked. We actually argued about nothing important and everything underneath it. About expectations. About who would bend first if someone had to. And weirdly, that's when I knew. Because we didn't shut down. We didn't pull away. We stayed in it, uncomfortable and honest and real. On my last night there, we stood on his balcony, the city lights blurred through mist. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. You know, he said quietly, my sister keeps asking when she's going to see you again. I smiled. Is that an invitation? It's her way of saying she already decided. I turned his arms. And you? He didn't hesitate. I stopped worrying about who I was supposed to fall for. So did I. It wasn't instant. It wasn't easy. But a year after that wedding, I stood next to Ethan at another one, this time as his date, not a complication. Mark caught my eye from across the room and smirked like he'd known all along. Maybe he had. I went to a wedding expecting a weekend distraction. Instead, I met the person who taught me that sometimes you fall for the wrong person only because the right one wasn't part of the plan. And that's okay, because the best things rarely are. It's funny how endings don't always announce themselves. There was no big moment where everything suddenly clicked into place. No dramatic confession in the rain. No perfect, cinematic wrap-up. Life didn't slow down to let us admire what we built. It just kept going. Ethan moved to Chicago 18 months after that first wedding. Not because of me alone, there was a job opportunity, a practical reason, but we both knew the truth underneath it. You don't uproot your life unless something already feels like home. The first few months were messy. Too many toothbrushes in a small bathroom. Arguments about dumb things like thermostat settings and whose turn it was to buy groceries. Learning each other's bad habits up close, without distance to soften the edges. And still, every night, he reached for me in his sleep like it was instinct. One evening, almost 2 years to the day after Mark's wedding, we were sitting on our couch, half watching a movie we'd already seen. Ethan was scrolling through his phone, smirking to himself. What? I asked. My sister, he said. She just sent me photos from that wedding. I laughed. The one where you accidentally ruined my life? He leaned over and kissed my temple. Improved it. I took the phone from his hand and looked at the picture. There we were standing near the bar, close but not touching, both of us pretending nothing important was happening. If you didn't know better, you'd miss it entirely. But I could see it now. The tension, the almost, the beginning of something neither of us had been brave enough to name yet. I can't believe I almost didn't come to that wedding, I said. Ethan glanced at me. Yeah. Almost canceled, I admitted. Thought it'd be awkward. Thought I'd feel out of place. He smiled softly. Guess you went anyway. Guess I did. He grew quiet for a moment, then said, You know what I think? What? I think sometimes we fall in love with the wrong person because the right one shows up disguised as a bad idea. I laughed, shaking my head. You're way too self-aware for a guy I met at an open bar. Still got you, he said. Later that night, as we got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror older than I was back then, a little more tired but steadier. Happier. I thought about the version of myself who boarded that plane, expecting nothing more than a weekend escape. He had no idea that love would find him sideways, that it wouldn't look like it was supposed to, that it would start as a mistake and turn into a life. I slid into bed beside Ethan, his arm already reaching for me. If I could go back and tell that guy anything, it would be this. Sometimes the best love stories begin when you fall for the one person everyone assumes you shouldn't. And sometimes choosing him anyway is the most honest thing you'll ever do.